Have you ever used the array modifier in Blender and thought, I wish that was available in Unreal? Well, now it is. You will have the same available modes, including circle and transform. Start by creating a blueprint. Add an instanced static mesh. This is better than a normal mesh for performance because it will just copy one mesh instead of having multiple separate meshes. Set the mesh and promote it to a variable. We must set it public to access it outside. Do the same thing for the material. Before we start making the shapes, we want to destroy them. Otherwise, we will keep spawning more and more without clearing them first. Add a for loop. This will control the amount of shapes that we spawn. Create another variable for distance between the shapes. We'll finally add the shape. So if we now try to spawn more shapes, they will all spawn in the same location. How do we set the location different for each shape in one line of code? We multiply by the index. So if offset is 100, the second shape will be at 200, third 300, and so on. And now we already have the default array modifier. I'm going to adjust it to be more like the newer version, though. I like to keep the default value of the offset to around 100 or 200. In Blender, the rotation compounds. So I'll do the same thing. The next thing to address is the count. 0 will now mean one shape. If you're okay with that, then you can keep it like it is. But if you want 1 to be 1, then you can just subtract count like this. We'll do the same thing for scale. But here there's a problem. The shapes will compound regardless of whether we change scale or not. And if you set scale to 0, they will be too small. Subtract by 1, and multiply that with index. If we increase scale with 0.2, for instance, then the result will be added with 1, thus giving us the right result. If scale is 1, the multiplied result will be 0, and scale will stay correct. But what if you wanted to randomize the scale or rotation? We can do that too. Add a select node, and connect the default value to B. How you randomize is really up to you, but the easiest way is probably like this. This is good because you can limit the max size and rotation instead of having shapes all over the place. Keep in mind that the shapes will randomize every time you move them or do something. Same thing for scale. That was the wrong select node. Add them by 1. So instead, I'll create another variable for the random scale. That's it for the standard mode. To switch between modes, we can create an enum. Even though Blender's setup is a bit different, I found my setup to be simpler, but feel free to tweak things later on. Copy and paste the previous code. Here we're going to divide instead, then multiply. The random values will work automatically. The transform is almost the same as the first one. For the rotation, however, I'm not completely sure how it works, but I was able to pull it off nonetheless. The rotate vector is creating an axis around the given value. I'll cover this more in depth another time. First of all, the offset is doubled. The rotation will make the cubes rotate towards the first one. For the scale, you want to multiply with the index after subtracting. You'll see that the transform compounds twice as much. Let's set up the last and maybe coolest of them all. Here we're going to do things differently. Create these variables for the circle. Optionally, you can also label them into their own category. Set the max to 360. Here you want to make sure to treat each integer as a float. Otherwise, you may have bugs. This is circle geometry math. And honestly, I'm not completely sure how it works either. Just know that this will give us the circle location in X and this on Y. Make vector and leave Z empty. This will allow the shapes to rotate towards the center. You can also add a Boolean to decide whether you want that. I'll use a separate value for the circle rotation. Also set this to be 360. We can also add this for another cool feature.